All right, let's talk about classic tweening and Adobe Animate. So these videos will walk you through doing the project. So the project is for you to create a unique and creative introduction using the words and letters classic tweening. But first, as far as the chronological order of your workflow, you will create the second part of the animation, and it will be based on a Swift file that I provide to you. So you'll create it 100% of the way through with me, exactly like mine. Really no exercising of your creativity there. But then once you learn what the possibilities are, then you'll go back and you'll create an interesting introduction. So let me go ahead and jump into Flash here and show you an example of both. With my help, you'll create a duplicate of this animation that looks something like this. And I'll show you the thing in its entirety in a little bit. But by the time you're done with this project, you will have something that looks, now yours will obviously look different because this is where your creativity comes into play, but the first 8 to 12 seconds you will get to do something creative with all of the classic tweening that you learn here. And then it'll go into this part, and everybody's will look the same from here out. But as you work on this project, you'll have access to two places that you can watch my animation as you work on yours. One will be right here amongst the videos, and in fact in just a little bit I'll play it in its entirety, but the other place is I'll provide you with a Swift file. So if you're viewing from the Swift file that I provide you, I just want to make you aware that I've snuck some buttons that you can barely see in here. There'll be a pause button, a play button, and I think I call it jump 3 button where it'll jump back 3 seconds. So right now I'm going to go ahead and play this in its entirety, and during the first couple seconds while it's playing I'll just take my mouse at the bottom and roll over those buttons so you can see them. So here's the buttons. And then you see it went blank just for a split second or two there, and then starts over again. So again, I have these buttons down here, and for example, the jump button, if you missed something, you just click that and it jumps back 3 seconds in the video so that you can see it again. Before we get started with this, I need to explain why we're going to do classic tweening and what's so important about it. So based on everything that we've done so far on the first project, if we wanted to just make a simple animation of a square moving from the left side of the stage to the right side of the stage, we would have to just create in each keyframe a new image. Now that's the way they had to do it in the old days, and for us there's two reasons we don't want to do it this way. One, it takes way too long to make an animation, and two, it wastes resources. Some of you are going to move on to do a lot of animating on the web, and as you're probably aware of, the least amount of information you have to put out on the web, the faster things load, the smoother everything goes. So you definitely want to avoid situations like this. So what's the best way to do it? Well, here's the best way to do something simple like that, and I'll show you what all this stuff is later, so I don't expect you to know it right now. But we would just take what's known as a symbol, put an instance of it on the stage in one place, and then however many frames later is appropriate, we would insert a blank keyframe and either bring out another instance of that symbol or just simply copy it from the pasteboard, and then we just tell the computer that we want to do a classic tween, and now all we have as far as information goes is 2 keyframes, but even better, each keyframe contains exactly the same information. So we really only have one drawing, if you want to call it that, where here we have, what, about 40 different drawings. So this that we're about to learn uses far, far less resources. Now, there's 2 other types of tweening that you should be aware of, and I'm going to cover here just for completeness sake, but we're not going to do anything with them right now. The other is what's known as a shape tween. So I just created another layer and I'm going to do a shape tween. But there's one and only one reason that you should ever use a shape tween, and that is for morphing something, where it actually changes, and not just size or stretching, but it actually morphs into a different shape. Like in this example, we're going to go from a square to a circle. And so if I apply a shape tween to this, that's exactly what happens. So I messed something up there. Okay, that's better. So we have this square that morphs into a circle. Now, this uses a lot more resources than our classic tween here, the blue one. And that is because these shapes can be modified at any time. And then the computer will do its best to understand what we're after. So if I take like a little chop out of this with the eraser, then that's what it's going to do its best, is to go from this circle to, or from this square to this circle with the little bit of eraser that was taken from it. So what I want to emphasize here is never use a shape tween when you could use a classic tween or a motion tween. We'll talk about the motion tween in just a second. So just know this, in the next bit of study you're going to do, you're going to learn about all the different ways that you can do classic tweening, which includes stretching and scaling and color changes and all kinds of things. If you can do it that way with symbols in classic tweening, and then maybe later on down the road with symbols in motion tweening, that's definitely the way to do it over shape tweening, which is on the bottom row here, and over frame by frame animation, which is what's going on the top row. And the fourth type of animation is what's known as motion tweening. And I'm going to guess, if you've watched any tutorials on Flash or Adobe Animate, that that's probably what they showed you, because it appears easier at first. But if you're interested, I'm going to make a video at the end of this sequence of videos, and I'll probably call it something like extra or something to that effect, that goes over, for one thing, will be why I don't think as a beginner you should use motion tweening, and I'll show you some of the things that can happen and what you should be aware of with them. And then anything else that comes up along the way that you really don't have to see, but you may want to for your own benefit, I'll include in that final video. So let's go ahead and create this animation together. So if we look at the requirements, 20 frames per second, stage size that is 800 by 600 pixels tall, and then this color. Inside of Flash, we'll go File, New, make sure it's ActionScript 3.0, and then we can punch in our stage size here, 800 by 600. Frame rate that we're going to go with is 20, and then the background color, punch that in. And I would suggest that when you're working on this project, to make your life easier, you have the electronic document open, which I will provide you with, because you can copy and paste all the text, and in this case copy and paste the color. And where do we go here? Go ahead and paste that in, click OK, and you now have the document completed. The other thing that I'll list on the extras video at the end of this section is I'll talk a little bit about what that numbering system was using the hexadecimal numbers. Next thing that's important for us is to talk about this and about this, but let's just talk about symbols generically for a second here. I'm going to double click on the hand tool just so I can see the complete stage, and let's just take the rectangle tool and switch over to properties so we can see what we're going to build here. And let's just build a simple, let's say a red shape. No stroke, just a fill, and we'll just click and drag. Doesn't matter what kind of shape you create. But if you did this without this button pushed in over here, which again your screen probably looks like this. I just brought it out over here just for that kind of purpose, to show you that that was not pushed in. So I'm not in object drawing mode. If you are, go ahead and disable that. But if I select this now, it tells me in the properties panel that that's a shape. Now, if all we're going to do is move this around, or simply just change colors, or maybe squish it down to make it look more like a square, or stretch it out this way, all the things that you're going to learn about, then what we want to do is convert this to a symbol. And the way to convert to a symbol, the easiest way, is you just simply press F8. And then give it a name. Like I'll just call this red rect, like that, like rectangle. Don't use any spaces in here. Don't start with numbers. And the type of symbol that we're going to use for now in this whole entire video here will be a graphic. We click OK, and what we notice is that in our library we now have a symbol in there. This right here that's out on the stage, right away we want to get two words down, and I'd write these down. I would understand the difference between a symbol and an instance. So I'm going to click on this instance that's out here and delete it. Now you might think, well, you did all that work and it's gone, but it's not. It's here. It lives in the library. So that's what I want you to write down, is that a symbol lives only in the library. When we bring out a copy, and all I have to do is go to the library, click on the little icon next to the name, click and drag, and I've just brought out an instance of that symbol. If I click and drag, I just brought out another one. Click and drag, brought out another one. And if I click on the stage and drag and hold down the Option key, it makes a copy of that instance, but it's really no different than if I would have just brought another one out from the library. These are all instances of the symbol. And that's very powerful because we now have 5 entities on the stage, but as far as the amount of code that has to be written behind the scenes, it's really just referencing one symbol. And what makes this even more powerful is we can do things to these instances of the symbol. Like for example, I'm going to grab the free transform tool and I'm going to squish down the size of this one. I still only have one unique entity here. It's just that a little bit of code was written over the top of this one that said that it changed somehow. I can use things like, watch, if I put the cursor here with the free transform tool selected near the edge, it gives me this, and it allows me to skew it. Now, no matter what I do to these, as long as I'm just changing the instance of the symbol, it has no effect on the other symbol and writes very little bit of code. And as we go, you'll see all the different things we can do. But the key point is that if we wanted to do a major transform to this, like actually morph the way that it looks, then we would actually have to edit the symbol itself. And that's what I'll start with in the next video, is the 2 ways that you can edit a symbol.